play the mridanga loud now. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. All right. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page. 69. Okay. All right. Seems to be a lot of bookmarks in the one I have. Yeah. Yeah, there's this magnetic one. Well, that's quite later, 5. Chapter 5. But that's quite later, so I think it's Yanisha Sarvabhutanam, right? That's the one for today? Okay. Famous verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, text 69. So, Yanisha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Samyame Yasyam Jagati Bhutani Sanisha Pashyato Munaye Yanisha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Samyame Yasyam Jagarti Bhutani Sanisha Pashyato Munaye. Okay, who would like to chant? What does Narendra Prabhu do every Wednesday? He does something every Wednesday? Narendra? What does he do? Oh yeah? He reads and people listen? Alright, wow, sounds like fun. He reads, he chants, he sings, and then they share. Every Wednesday at what time? 5? 5 to 6?
Sometimes it goes a little over depending on
How enthusiastic he is? How enthusiastic he is, it depends. The group. Yeah. Are you going through Bhagavad Gita? With Narendra? But what book are you going through in that club? Every time different ones?
No, he's going through a series right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then right now, because of the
Mm-hmm.
he's doing that. He changed it today.
Oh, okay. Okay. What book has he been going through, though? Nectar of Instruction or Nectar of Devotion? Instruction? Okay. Anyways, because the reason I'm asking is because there's somebody, I met somebody and he wants to start doing a study of Bhagavad Gita or something kind of like that. So I was thinking he could join Narendra. I mean, I also told him we do the Gita classes here. He's here in San Diego, but anyways, depending on what he wants, I might try to connect him to Narendra Prabhu. All right. What was that? Yeah. Okay, translation. Commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. Purport. There are two classes of intelligent men. One is intelligent in material activities for sense gratification, and the other is introspective and awake to the cultivation of self-realization. Activities of the introspective sage or thoughtful man are night for persons materially absorbed. Materialistic persons remain asleep in such a night due to their ignorance of self-realization. The introspective sage remains alert in the night of the materialistic men. The sage feels transcendental pleasure in the gradual advancement of spiritual culture, whereas the man in materialistic activities, being asleep to self-realization, dreams of varieties of sense pleasure, feeling sometimes happy and sometimes distressed in his sleeping condition. The introspective man is always indifferent to materialistic happiness and distress. He goes on with his self-realization activities undisturbed by material reactions. Omagana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Maditamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karidavachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yakripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Deditaranam Vancha Kalpadribhishcha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chad, do you think you could just close the door that's separating the Pujari room and the hallway? There's a swinging door.
Oh, upstairs?
No, just through this hallway here.
Oh, okay.
You'll see there's a door open that goes into the Pujari room. Okay, translation again. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. So there's a vast difference between a transcendentalist and a materialist, and that vast difference, practically speaking, you could say is in their desires or their interests. A materialistic person has no, practically speaking, no interest. Like Srila Prabhupada would say, talking about materialistic people, they say, oh, what are you doing wasting your time reading the Bhagavad Gita or going to the temple? You could be doing so many other things right now with your time, like making money. Because, the time spent in the Bhagavad Gita class, 7:15 to 8:15 to 8:30, by the time you're done with everything, 8:45, 9, going home, 9:30, it adds up. And if you do that all the time, that's a lot of time. What to speak if you're in the morning doing some spiritual activity, so that all of that adds up. So that time could theoretically be spent in just making more money, right? Or doing so many other things. So for a materialistic person, they would look at spiritual people or transcendental people or people, Hare Krishnas. They would look at them and say, wow, all of you are wasting your time. Big time waste of time. And similarly, the transcendentalist or the devotees or the Hare Krishna people, they look at people who are just simply materially engaged with no spiritual sentiments, no spiritual interests, and they think the same thing, that, wow, you're wasting your time, you could be learning from the Bhagavad Gita, you could be associating with spiritually like-minded individuals, you could be nourishing yourself spiritually, but you're just focusing on temporary accumulation of whatever, stuff and money and so on. So the transcendentalist looks at them and thinks, wow, you're wasting your time. Like one devotee on book distribution, he was distributing books in Hawaii, and somebody came up to him, just a regular guy off the street, and he said to him, to the devotee distributing Bhagavad Gitas, he went up to him and he said, I have one question for you. He's asked the devotee, I have one question for you. And then this Hare Krishna person said, okay, what is that question? And the man said, why do you insist on wasting your human form of life by doing what you're doing? In other words, by chanting Hare Krishna. But it's interesting because he was using, it's kind of like devotee terminology. You know, why are you wasting your human form of life? He must have read Prabhupada's books or something, I don't know. And then like switched it up. So yeah, there's and the thing is, they have, these groups, they have a hard time understanding each other. Like a transcendentalist looks at a materially engaged, absorbed person, and they have a hard time understanding, like, how are you spending your life like this? This doesn't make any sense. That's what a spiritual person looks at a materialistic person. And a materialistic person looks at a spiritual person, they say, how are you spending your life doing this? Like, but for example, Vajrayana Swami gives the example of his mother. When Vajrayana Swami was a young brahmachari in Los Angeles, there was a lot of devotees in the temple at that time, and all the brahmacharis, they were living in one room. And apparently what they did is they got some type of like duct tape, and they like sectioned off their sleeping spaces because there were so many of them, and I guess, I don't know. Anyways, that's what they did. So he said he got a good place in the room. It was by the window, and he could plug in his alarm clock or whatever, and he had a nice space there. And then his mother came and she checked out the place, and then she started to cry. She said, I can't believe you. How are you living like this? They come from a Southern Californian well-to-do family, and how are you living like this? I didn't raise you to live like this. Or like our buddy Ted Patrick, those of you who know his name, but he was an old, they call it deprogrammer. Deprogrammer means somebody has something programmed in their type of lifestyle, and right. But this guy's a deprogrammer, so what he would do is they would actually capture like people who live in the temple, brahmacharis or women living in the temple, brahmacharinis they call them, living in the temple, and they would like throw them in a van and then try to deprogram them or brainwash them, try to get them to forget about Krishna consciousness. Sometimes it would work, actually. Many times it didn't work. Devotees just got away and came back to the temple. But Ted Patrick, he had this whole perception about how the devotees were living, and he just thought it was just terrible. He couldn't understand, and the people who were hiring him obviously couldn't understand either what these people are doing. What are the Hare Krishna people doing? So therefore, they're trying to deprogram their sons and daughters and so on. But anyways, one of the things that if you look it up, there's a conversation between Hridayananda Goswami. Now he goes by the name HG Goswami, Hridayananda Goswami, and Ted Patrick, this deprogrammer. So they're going back and forth. And Ted Patrick is trying to prove on live television how the Hare Krishnas is just complete. There's no authenticity to it at all. It's just pure insanity. And Hridayananda Goswami is trying to prove on live television in this conversation how this is the oldest culture in the world, and there's all of these ancient wisdom books such as Bhagavad Gita, world classic, and so on. He's trying to prove. So anyways, it's interesting. You could look it up. It's amusing. But one of the things Ted Patrick, he says there, he's mentioned how the devotees, he said, my dog eats better than that. And he said they're sitting on the ground eating off of wax paper, because apparently that's what the devotees would do. Yeah, exactly. That's why they would do it. They would put wax paper, then devotees would eat off of it. But anyways, it was hard for him to understand. Now, of course, we don't eat off of wax paper anymore. I think maybe we made a little bit more advancement. But still, I suspect that Ted Patrick would have a hard time just understanding the simple point of sitting on the floor, which, whatever, people are sitting on the chairs, that's fine, but the idea of sitting on the floor and like having your meals, like for some people that's such a cultural weird thing that they just, it's like, what are you people doing? Just that alone. I know it might sound strange why people would be so culturally shocked by that, but people are. I remember I brought one of my family members some years ago, and it was time for everybody to take prasadam at the Sunday feast, to have dinner here at the temple on Sunday night. And then he saw everybody sitting on the ground, and I could just see, like, from his face, his mind was just like having a hard time processing it. Such a simple thing. What to speak of all the other things? There's a lot more things that people may have a hard time understanding. So yeah, both of these parties, they're looking at each other and they can't really understand why they're doing what they're doing. And Prabhupada says in the purport that both of them are intelligent. One is intelligent in the way of sense gratification, and the other is intelligent in terms of introspection, in terms of cultivation of self-realization. So that's what the Bhagavad Gita is advising us, that we should be intelligent in the way of self-realization, and that we should use our human form of life for the purpose of self-realization. So that means our bodies, our minds, our intelligence, our what else? Words, our property, our everything. What is it? actions, everything, used for the purpose of self-realization or God-realization. That's that, and by doing that, we will actually enjoy. And as Srila Prabhupada one time said, he was in New York in the early days, 1966. He was making the point about how the living entities, they want to enjoy. And then he said to someone in the audience, because someone asked a question about enjoyment, and then Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, enjoyment?" He said, "You do not know what is enjoyment." It's interesting. Answer Prabhupada gave. He just told him, you don't know what enjoyment is. And he went to explain that enjoyment is the soul reconnecting with the Supreme Soul, or Krishna, through loving service. So that's real enjoyment. And if we analyze it, and we're meant to analyze it, this particular subject matter of God realization, it makes sense. It gives us, you could say, purpose, which is important, because sometimes within people's lives, people just become hopeless because they see everything is just meaningless. Like, what's the point? Like, somebody sent me a video recently, and in this particular video, there was a woman speaking, and she was saying how she, as an individual, she bought a house, but she was explaining how in due course of time, she's going to be gone, and the house is going to be there, and how there's going to be new people in that house, and how her name is going to be eventually forgotten. And then she was given the example about how many of us know our grandfather's father, our grandfather's father's father. Like, how many know? She was making the point. And if you think about it, I mean, I don't know. Eventually it becomes a name in the past, and then a picture on the wall, and then a picture in a, if people still have them nowadays, in a box full of pictures or album, and you don't know. Like, my mother has some old pictures of our family, and I have no idea who those people are. I mean, and it's hard to even find history on those people, who they were, what they stood for, what they did. And she was saying how our possessions will be someone else's, and on and on and on. And then she was making the point that, of course, from all that, you could come up with all different conclusions. So you could say, okay, so therefore just enjoy. Right? Just try to make it the best life and just enjoy, or there's no point to life, just enjoy. But or you could come up with different conclusions. But she was making the point that, therefore, it's important to not focus on, you could say, the small problems of life, because ultimately, how much does it really matter? A lot of these things. But, and then I could add to what she said, but ultimately we should focus on, you could say, the most important thing, and that is us reawakening our lost relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So yes, there is purpose, there is meaning to life, and there are answers to important questions found within the Bhagavad Gita. And this is what a transcendentalist, this is you could say, the wonderful direction that they get found within Bhagavad Gita. And for a materialistic person, it just, again, it doesn't make sense to them. And they remain, as Srila Prabhupada says here, they remain asleep to self-realization. And they remain in their dream-like existence, sometimes suffering and sometimes enjoying. Just like when we're sleeping, right? Sometimes there's some happy dream. I don't know what, you're with some old friends and you're at a beautiful location and whatever. And then there's some distressing dreams. Somebody's shooting at you with a gun. I mean, that's quite distressing, right? Or somebody's running after you to attack you or something or whatever. There's so many. My friend was telling me he one time had a dream that he was in the body of a monkey, and then that he was there was a lion about to devour him. That was his dream. Yeah. So in this way, you could have different dreams that are or full of enjoyment or full of suffering, and then in this sleeping condition. But a transcendentalist, they go on with self-realization, the activities of self-realization, undisturbed by material reactions. So they go on in their transcendental, in the transcendental ecstasy of Krishna consciousness, enjoying ever increasing pleasure in Krishna consciousness, and becoming more God-realized, more and more God-realized, and also they, over time, start to realize their particular purpose in life, in Krishna consciousness, as an individual practitioner. Because we all have individual, you could say, missions, different purposes. So does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes.
I would say most people, I guess I can speak for myself, I'm being born into being asleep to self-realization, being born into a family like that, and now all of us are kind of here. Is there any common denominator in every person in this room that kind of brings us to wanting to have that path of self-realization from being born into a lifestyle that is not that?
Is there like a common quality you could say that we all have that brings us to the point of wanting to be Krishna conscious? I'm just trying to well, I mean, it's interesting how people take to Krishna consciousness. I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, what does he say? He says many things in the Bhagavad Gita. But I think it's chapter 7, text thought it was, yeah. I think it's, let's see here. Yeah, 16. He says, Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukritina arjuna arto jigasur artharti gyani cha paratarshava. He says there are 4 kinds of pious men, or persons, began to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. So, just looking at the purport here. So you could say in so many ways, people in this age are distressed, right? Everybody's distressed, more or less, and more than less. Also, people are desirous of wealth. I mean, some people, they don't come to Krishna consciousness on the basis of desiring wealth, because they think, okay, what wealth is here? I mean, it's not a very exactly wealthy society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But in other countries, for example, India, and mostly India, someone may come to Krishna consciousness for that reason. They're coming from a poor village, for example, and you join ISKCON and you make your way up in a managerial position, and you may have some money that kind of flows through your hands that you can move around and so on. Whatever, that's a detail, but then there's the inquisitive, and then there's people searching for knowledge of the Absolute Truth. So then the question is, okay, well, why are some people, you could say, in a situation in which they're curious, or in which they're searching for knowledge of the Absolute Truth? Because, for example, there's 2 people born in a family, and one person, they're very inquisitive, wanting to know the truth, or just curious. And the other person's not at all. So it's interesting, because they're born in the same place. They might even be born at the same time, or almost at the same time, such as twins. But one person takes interest and the other person doesn't. So this could be seen as maybe you could say some past life experiences, or in other words, one individual has made tangible progress, more progress in devotional life than another individual, looking at their past lives. So how does that particular, you could say, advancement take place? How does that advancement in Krishna consciousness take place? Why is one person advancing and another person not? So, I mean, one thing is they have this whole principle of agyatu sukriti, which means unknown devotional service. So you may do something good or devotional without really knowing how good it really is. Just like someone may come up to you and say, would you like to buy this Bhagavad Gita? And you say, okay, great, and you give a donation. So that's an unknown devotional act. So performing those acts, those will add up in one's bank account. And then one will come to the point where they could go further, where they could go further in their devotional progress. So like that, a number of lives brings people to a certain point. So that's one consideration. And sometimes, like Srila Prabhupada was asked by one disciple, the question was brought to him, Srila Prabhupada, we were performing sinful activity, or he said, Srila Prabhupada, I was performing sinful activities up until the point I met you. So how is it that my pious, how is it that, because it says that persons who take to devotional service must have performed all types of sacrifices and pious activities in the past. So how is it that I am coming to devotional service because I was performing sins up until the point I met you? And then Srila Prabhupada said, well, I have created your good fortune. Means by my association, it's not that you had anything special. That's what he's saying practically. But I have created your good fortune. So sometimes we see that someone may not have all types of past life credits that allow them to take to devotional service, but they may be relatively new in the game, if you want to call it a game. But by the association of devotees, or by the association of a devotee or devotees, then that association is so powerful that it can influence one in such a powerful, positive way that one could really take a lot of interest in the process. Just because a devotee has somehow or other, you could say, melted that person's heart, has attracted that person somehow or other. So it's quite a, you could say, mystical process. And as Srila Prabhupada said, you know what he said about mystical? He said mystical means you don't know. Like it's called mystic power because you're not really sure how it works. But if you know how it works, it's not really mystical anymore. So in some ways it's a mystical process how one becomes attracted to the process of devotional service, to Krishna. Of course, Krishna is all attractive, and because devotees are connected with Krishna, they also become attractive. And in this way they attract souls, you could say, to Krishna. And when they become attracted to Krishna and they take up the process of Krishna consciousness, they start to relish some of the happiness of Krishna consciousness, and then they start to realize what is good for their Krishna consciousness and what is bad for their Krishna consciousness, and then they try to protect themselves, or they try to live in such a way that their Krishna consciousness is not hampered by anything. In other words, they mold their lives in such a way as where they could be steadily progressing. So that's, and then it turns into higher levels of Krishna consciousness. But it is interesting how some people take to it and some people don't. But a fortunate soul takes to it. So if we are counted amongst those souls, and of course that number could be unlimited. It's not that there's a particular number on it, but if we're counted amongst those souls who have taken to the process of Krishna consciousness, we should consider ourselves very fortunate. And we should do everything possible and intelligently. We should do everything intelligently also, in such a way as that we do not lose that fortune, because it can be lost. And aside from that, we try to create good fortune for others. That's very important. to somehow or other extend Krishna consciousness to others, directly, indirectly, semi-directly, semi-indirectly, somehow or other use our talents and our abilities and whatever we have to try to extend Krishna consciousness. Yes, I think Chad has a question. Yes.
I was just thinking about, you had mentioned purpose and how important purpose is in people's lives. And I was thinking about it in the context of the two classes of intelligent men. On one hand, you could have purpose in the mode of passion. And then on the other hand, you could have purpose in the mode of goodness or transcendental, definitely. Which was kind of, it goes at the purity of the purpose. So I was just thinking about that when you were talking about purpose and the purport. So
yes, so you're saying that there's purpose in the mode of ignorance, passion, goodness, and how you're saying purity comes into it?
Well, I'm saying that purpose in general is important in people's lives.
Yes.
But purpose in different modes can have different results in karma and everything else. Yeah. Right? So it's best to have purpose that's pure.
Yes.
Or in the mode of goodness or transcendental. And
yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's purpose in the different modes. Krishna explains there's different modes of material nature. Right? Explains it. There's a chapter, 3 modes of material nature. So, for example, the mode of ignorance, it's characterized by excessive sleep, means too much sleep, and intoxication, destruction, it's a very destructive mode. There's no creation, there's no maintenance, just destruction. You know, like people engage in self-destructive activities. That's a mode of ignorance. And then there's passion. Passion is strong greed, strong hankering, strong competition to be number one in the material world in so many different ways. And there's no real tinge of spiritual interest there. It's just material interest, passion. And goodness is a life of clean living, self-control, knowledge, wisdom. Yes. So everything can be characterized practically in this material world. It could be categorized in these different modes of nature. Like, for example, food. It says food that is obtained by violent means, that is too spicy, that is, I think it says something, Prabhupada makes a point like over 3 hours. In other words, it should be fresh food. On and on and on. This is considered the mode of ignorance. And then and then there's the mode of goodness food, you know, fresh and say nourishing to the body. It is not obtained by violent means, and so on. So foods like that, music, everything in this material world could be in the different modes. So similarly, purpose, like a purpose. Say, oh, the purpose of my life is to is to sleep as much as possible and get as intoxicated as possible. Right? That's the purpose of my life. We would say that's the mode of ignorance. Or the purpose of my life is to do whatever I have to do. I have to kill. I have to steal. I have to cheat. As long as I get money. That's the purpose of my life. We could say that's a mode of passion. And goodness also, can be seen as a trap. I could say the purpose of my life is to enjoy a peaceful, right, clean life. That could also be a distraction. So yeah, there's different purpose. So you could say purpose can also be within these modes. So we want to have transcendental purpose. The purpose of my life is God realization. The purpose of my life is self-realization. The purpose of my life is pleasing Krishna. So we want to have transcendental purpose. So yeah, that's important. Prabhupada says there's two classes of intelligent men. I was thinking, what are the two classes of unintelligent men? Because the two classes of intelligent men, one is intelligent in material activities, and the other is introspective, and awake to the cultivation of self-realization. So I guess an unintelligent man, the other class, unintelligent man, is someone who's not so good in the activities of sense gratification. Like Prabhupada said about money, there's some joke. It's some type of joke from India or something, but Prabhupada was joking with one of his disciples, and he said, "Oh, the proof that one is intelligent is that there should be money in one's pockets." And then Prabhupada said, "Oh, money, it's flying, you know. You just have to learn, it's flying all over. You just have to learn the art of catching it." Or maybe you could say unintelligent, the other class of unintelligent men, they're not very, you could say, good in the matter of introspection or the matter of self-realization. So yeah, the idea is to be intelligent in the matter of self-realization. So that's the idea. Is there any other comments or? Yes.
Earlier you mentioned about how a devotee, as they move along the path, might seek to protect themselves.
There's people listening online, and they get confused because
It should be on. You can speak.
You made mention of devotees that move forward along the path, protecting themselves. And I'm wondering what that means as far as protecting themselves. Like, how does that actually get implemented in daily life?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's a very dangerous world, actually. Our scripture says there's danger at every step. Even when you're not stepping, there's danger. So there's danger. Yeah, it's a very dangerous world, materially and spiritually. Materially means whatever, bad neighborhoods and this and that. You could say there's dangerous. Or you're living in certain parts of the world that are dangerous. But spiritually, in the sense that there's so many ways to become sidetracked or distracted, or to lose purpose, or to lose interest. So yeah, it can be quite challenging, actually, navigating. And the world is also full of cheaters. So that's also a consideration, that people are out to cheat us. So it could be difficult sometimes. Like if somebody's a good-hearted person, selfless person, good-hearted person, people could be easily cheated. So in that way, and in all ways actually, one needs protection. One needs to be protected. One needs to protect themselves. One needs spiritual protection, like shelter. So therefore there's a principle of prayer. because there's all of these, you could say, different different forms of the illusory energy, the different forms of Maya, of illusion, that could bewilder us. So if we pray to Krishna, then Krishna will protect us from that particular illusion. In other words, we'll become spiritually strong. And in the face of illusion, we won't have a problem. We won't be distracted or lose our particular our Krishna consciousness. So yeah, there's many aspects of this particular, you could say, point of needing protection. But therefore, there's great stress on the guru principle, means having a spiritual teacher or having spiritual teachers who are wise and kind, who could guide us through life in such a way as that we don't cheat ourselves and we don't become cheated by others. So, but now we will end the class. So thank you all very much. And there'll be a kirtan arti. 70, yes. Tomorrow 70.